So what have I been reading this week? This is my first reading vlog, and I'll try to do these every Friday or so, just to capture thoughts on books that I'm not going to review for a while, or perhaps never will, because I don't generally, for instance, review sequels and further parts of a series, because most people, unless they're up for a spoiler discussion, aren't getting random non-spoiler reviews of book 5 of a series, at least on a small channel like mine. So I'll talk about what I'm reading, both fiction and to a degree RPGs, and I'll also use this as an opportunity to say, oh, I got these books this week. So what have I been reading? Well, I completed books 3 and 4 of the Dark is Rising sequence, Green Witch and the Grey King. Look at the covers, aren't they beautiful? The Grey King particularly. I gave Green Witch in the end on Goodreads a 4 and the Grey King a 5. The Grey King is a incredibly good novel. It's an incredibly underrated, neglected series, technically middle grade / young YA by the time you get to the Grey King, but really much more than that. There's a lot more depth to it than that. Nothing wrong with middle grade to begin with, but in terms of, this is not, oh, that's interesting, engaging. This is, oh wow, this is dealing with big themes and creating an epic landscape. So I really enjoyed those, and I am currently reading the final book, book 5, Silver on the Tree. You can see there Herne the Hunter leading the 6 riders, and this is also very good so far. I've slightly paused it this week, so I think I'm going to pick it back up tonight, basically because I've got other things I need to read, both non-fiction and fiction. So I'm enjoying that. I should say, if you want summaries, Green Witch is book 3 and brings together the threads from book 1 and 2 and involves a weird Wicca figure, the Green Witch, which becomes very important in the quest of those who are trying to stop the Dark Rising. The Grey King involves a spirit that rules the Welsh mountains where our hero goes, and who is trying to stop our hero accomplishing his aims, and that is the Mulgum, I think, his invisible grey fox minions, Silver on the Tree. I don't know everything that's going to happen in that, so we'll find out. Though it does include going to the time travelling to an excavation of the amphitheatre at Chester, Caerleon, which is a place that I really enjoy in England, and I lived there for many years. I've been reading Elric of Melniboné, the main story in this, as part of a buddy read with I think 4 others, and Michael Moorcock is an author I have mixed feelings about, partly because he's irritating. Anyone who spends time being like, do you know Tolkien's actually a bad writer and no one should read him? It's like the Philip Pullman thing. You just think, I like the stuff you're writing, your attitude about other authors is odious. But it's really interesting. It's certainly, I prefer it to the other books of his I've read, which were the Dances at the End of Time trilogy. It's very arch, it's very over the top, it's very stylized, and so you need to enjoy that. If you're going to enjoy it at all. And there's a degree to which some things actually really, the angstiness feels outdated. I mean, it feels like something that's just a little bit passé now. But I've enjoyed that. Lee Brackett's Sword and Planet / military sci-fi. It's a weird combo. Short stories. Really enjoyed most of the ones I've read here. I'll be doing a review on these fairly soon. Along with the sort of Rhiannon by Lee Brackett, along with an Appendix N video on her influence on D&D. Really interesting figure. Wrote one of the first drafts of The Empire Strikes Back, as well as many other big films, but virtually unknown today. Really interesting to compare her to the other great Sword and Planet writer, and I would say she's one of the 2 great Sword and Planet writers, Edgar Rice Burroughs. So yeah, I've been reading that, and I've been reading Dune, book 1, Dune. This is the trilogy, you see. And I'm maybe a 1/6 of the way through that, and I need to really double down into that again and get some good progress on that. I might prioritise finishing Elric first. So I've really enjoyed Dune. It's a reread. I've read Dune twice, I think, and I don't find anything wrong with Dune. It is nearly, in its genre, a perfect novel. And I guess I'll see if I think that this time. Certainly so far, knowing, once you have your expectations clear about a book, you can usually enjoy it to its maximum, potential. And Dune is a particular kind of book. It's also heavily stylized. We talked about that. I've said that with Elric. Very different style to Elric. But once you know the style and once you understand the degree to which, for instance, you're told what's going to happen in the plot before it happens, a long time from the start. You are given very specific perspectives. There's stuff like that I think is underrated about Herbert, like his character work. His prose, I think, is good. Some people really like it, some people really hate it. People really like the world building, but I think his characters are actually pretty interesting. The variety of personalities he puts on page and the way he tries to develop them, they are stylized, they are arch, but they are really interesting. So again, enjoying that. Pretty good reading week. And that basically constitutes my fiction TBR for the next week or so. Once I finish anything, I'll be putting in Terry Pratchett's Equal Rights. In terms of RPG reading, I haven't done any this week. The priority, though, is Vault of the Drow by Gary Gygax, which I want to review next month, and which is the classic conclusion to the classic Underdark trilogy. I've done D1 and 2, they're elsewhere on the channel. This month I'm going to be reviewing Evil Tide by Bruce Cordell as my retro RPG review. In terms of books I've gotten, I think one of these was actually last week, but I bought some A Merit novels for the purpose of Appendix N review and chat. So The Moonpool, with this Lost-like cover, partly because it's saying, oh look, we've inspired the series Lost. A print on demand, it's an okay picture actually, a print on demand, The Ship of Ishtar, with that kind of weird glossy covers you get, and very blank back cover you get with print on demand often, and then a classic edition of Dwellers in the Mirage. And just these concepts are intense, you know, they are very rich and creative. Like in this one, someone ends up in beneath a lake in the Alaskan mountains with a weird, or I think by a lake in the Alaskan mountains, leading a tribe of his ancestors worshipping a weird octopus god. This one is very D&D / Red Nails / whatever else, where a modern archaeologist ends up being the power broker on an ancient ship between two factions of priests, one faction of Ishtar and one of Nurgle. And the Moonpool is people getting lost on islands, weird stuff, mysteries, etc. I also got, and this is maybe the more exciting one in some ways for me, Far Horizons, edited by Robert Silverberg, with novellas by Ursula Le Guin, Joe Haldeman, Orson Scott Card, Dan Simmons, Hyperion, Robert Silverberg, Frederick Pohl, Anne McCaffrey, and a number of other authors. I really like Silverberg's Legends collections, and that was how I actually got introduced to a lot of very good authors. The first McCaffrey I read, the first George R.R. Martin I read, The Hedge Knight I still think might be his best work. All of those things I read in Legends, which I think my parents bought me Legends Volume 1 because it had a Terry Pratchett novella in it. But I've loved the other stuff. Tad Williams as well, I read there for the first time. So yeah, though I've read many of these authors and know some of these series, I am as excited as I was with the other things. It's got Ender's Game, or the Ender series, The Forever War. It's got Hyperion Cantos in terms of a novella, and The Ship Who Sang is the Anne McCaffrey in there. So that is what I've been reading in terms of fiction and RPGs, what I've got in terms of fiction. I also have done non-fiction, obviously for work and pleasure, and things like Latin practice, Greek practice. But that is what I've been reading this week. What have you been reading? What has been your most enjoyable and least enjoyable recent reads? Tell me in the comments. Till next time.